Here's your wrestling news for August 8th, 2021. And your headlines for today include, what just happened to Toni Storm? Breaking news, WWE's plan for another larger-scale round of roster cuts is revealed. Current WWE wrestler comments on recent WWE releases and quickly deletes her tweet. Major news on Vince McMahon's meeting with Adam Cole. Lana to make first post-WWE appearance. Ex-writer calls out WWE for losing touch of their audience like MTV. Original plan for Randy Orton before his sudden disappearance from WWE. MJF calls out Seth Rollins for plagiarizing his catchphrase during WWE Smackdown. Cody Rhodes on when he will retire from in-ring action. Samoa Joe wants to go back to commentary, and more. We are starting with SmackDown today, and around a month ago, WWE breathed new life into the Blue Brand's women's division by calling up 3 NXT superstars, namely Tegan Nox and Shotzi Blackheart as a tag team, as well as Toni Storm as a singles performer. Since then, Nox and Blackheart have been on a roll, defeating the women's tag team champions and making steady progress since then, but the same can't be said for Storm. After weeks of teasers promoting her debut and defeating Zelina Vega upon her arrival on SmackDown, Storm immediately disappeared from TV for the next 2 shows. What makes this even stranger is that Vega was on TV the next week, demanding a SmackDown Women's title match from Bianca Belair, and was about to get it had Sasha Banks not returned, making their match a tag team encounter. It seems that Storm would have done better had she lost to Vega instead of beating her, as just this week, Vega got a championship contenders match with Belair, WWE's new way of selling non-title matches. Between that match, the tag match, and the original match with Storm, Vega is 0-3, but she at least is getting on TV, more than the former NXT UK Women's Champion is doing. This doesn't mean that there's no plans for Storm or that WWE have given up on her yet, but her call-up has been strange to say the least. And with the Australian not factored in at all for SummerSlam, we are wondering why WWE couldn't have waited until after this month's pay-per-view to bring her up. Now, for the past year, WWE has been releasing waves of talent, all in the name of budget cuts, and now even more releases are expected. These releases have all been overseen by WWE President Nick Khan and CFO Christina Salen, who will continue to cut costs despite the anger of fans and some third-party partners. During the Mat Men Pro Wrestling podcast, Andrew Zarian warns listeners to expect another big set of releases, saying, "I put out a tweet, more is coming. I was told, this was a couple of weeks ago, that there are going to be 2 more releases coming on a larger scale. This was one, so I'm assuming that there is another one by the end of the year." Zarian added that WWE's plan is to close the roster down a little bit so they can focus more on the remaining talent, as it's much easier to focus on a smaller group of superstars. There's no word at this time as to who could be next on WWE's chopping block, but given the releases of the likes of Bray Wyatt and Braun Strowman, it's clear that nobody is safe. WWE's releases have been a sticking point for fans over the past year, but it's something we'll have to get used to, according to Fightful Select. Their report notes that these mass releases will become a regular thing from now on, and that's ultimately the decision of Vince McMahon, who could stop any release or all releases if he wanted to. McMahon may have the power to stop the releases, but it's Nick Khan who is making the call to cut more names in what's described as a collaborative effort in Fightful's report. If there's any silver lining to this, it's said that 2021 will be an outlier, with more releases more frequently than the years to come, but these waves of releases won't be going away anytime soon. More release news now, as plenty has been said about this latest wave of cuts to NXT, including by members of the remaining roster. On Twitter, Dakota Kai said that her heart was broken after the news of releases broke, but interestingly, that tweet was deleted very quickly after. Kai hasn't explained why that tweet was deleted, but it appears someone, either Kai or WWE, decided that this tweet wasn't meant to be read. The New Zealand superstar will face NXT Women's Champion Raquel Gonzalez at TakeOver 36 on August 22nd, and she'll probably think twice the next time she fires off a tweet about the inevitable next wave of cuts. Kyle O'Reilly was one of the lucky ones to not get released from NXT this week, but this mass exodus has had a major effect on the Gold brand's morale. On Twitter, O'Reilly discussed the releases, which saw his Undisputed Era teammate Bobby Fish getting cut, and summed up the mood in a single word. The word of the day is bummer. It was a bummer to see my friends lose their jobs, but I take solace in knowing they will all end up okay and doing great things. Still though, major bummer. On Tuesday, O'Reilly will have a face-to-face with Adam Cole, and it's expected that a match at TakeOver 36 will be made official, but as these releases have shown, no one in WWE is safe from being cut at a moment's notice. It's not just WWE superstars who have had things to say about these cuts, as Chris Jericho also fired off a tweet taking a shot at the company's releases. Though he didn't reference WWE by name or any of the 13 names released by the company this week, Jericho's target was clear, as he said, "I think now more than ever it's obvious, AEW is the best pro wrestling company in the world today, both for fans and especially for performers. Nothing can stop us now." Jericho wasn't the only one who had things to say, as Nick Khan, WWE releases, Triple H, and Bronson Reed were all trending, with the vast majority of fans unhappy with WWE once again releasing superstars for budget cuts at a time of immense profits. Fellow AEW star Santana said it's going to be a real interesting year, whilst Joey Janela branded the releases absolutely embarrassing, as it's not just the fans who aren't pleased with WWE's decisions this week. Adam Cole news next, as his contract with NXT expired in July, but he's agreed to work with WWE until after SummerSlam weekend. This short-term deal is the only contract Cole is currently working on, but we now have an update on the high-power meeting between him and Vince McMahon prior to this week's Smackdown. According to Fightful, their meeting went very well, as the WWE CEO has taken a liking to the former NXT champion on a personal level. This meeting was meant to happen last week, but was delayed, and those backstage this past Friday said that Cole wasn't around when SmackDown began. Their report also notes that pitches have been made to Cole to join Raw or SmackDown should he re-sign, and it's been made clear to Cole that he's wanted on the main roster. WWE may want Cole on the main roster, but right now, the ball's in his court, and if the former NXT champion wants to stay on the gold brand, then it's probably in WWE's best interest to do whatever it takes to keep him from AEW. For now, Cole is employed by WWE, which is more than can be said for Lana, whose first post-WWE appearance has been announced. According to PW Insider, Lana is set to appear at the Legends of the Ring convention in Islip, New Jersey, and that event takes place on October 2nd. Last month, Lana was announced for The Surreal Life on VH1, which will premiere this fall, as fans will be able to see plenty of the former WWE superstar after her non-compete clause expires on August 31st. Now, between the constant releases, wild booking decisions, and unpopular choice of bringing back Goldberg, fans are becoming disenfranchised with WWE and haven't been quiet about their anger with Vince McMahon's promotion. It's plain to see that there's been a shift in WWE, which has caused a rift between the company and the fans, and they're not the only form of entertainment to do this. In a series of tweets, former WWE writer Brian Maxwell Mann compared WWE to MTV, a channel he previously worked for, as he's a former writer on Total Request Live. Comparing WWE to MTV, Mann called McMahon's company a once-booming entertainment brand that lost its luster after years of mismanagement. Mann also said that both brands dominated the 80s and 90s, but lost touch with audiences, with the focus shifting from creating new viewers to increasing profitability and a heavy reliance on nostalgia. That last part is especially true, as WWE has been cutting costs to increase profitability, all the while relying on former names like John Cena and Goldberg to sell tickets. He added that this sort of disenfranchisement doesn't happen overnight, as both companies went through a decade of relying on concepts that only pushed away their core audience. Mann said that now MTV has all but abandoned news coverage, whilst WWE has spent the last few years making moves that's badly damaged the brand but resulted in massive amounts of guaranteed money, as fans and consumer products aren't the lifeblood of the company anymore. We'll have to keep monitoring WWE's activities as they continue to cut costs, but if they keep disenfranchising audiences, then these actions will eventually catch up with the company and their revenue. Now, it's been nearly 2 months since fans last saw Randy Orton on TV, as he randomly vanished after the June 21st Raw, despite his teaming with Riddle. Since then, fans have wondered where he's been, and despite Orton being expected to return on this week's Raw and was even advertised for a dark match, he not only didn't return, but was not even present backstage. Before his hiatus, Orton and Riddle were set to enter a Raw Tag Team title feud against AJ Styles and Omos, but that plan is in serious jeopardy. In the Wrestling Observer newsletter, it stated that Orton was meant to return in time for SummerSlam, but with Orton still out and the reason for his absence still a secret, it seems that title match won't be happening next Saturday. Orton's name has reportedly been on the inactive/disabled list, but that doesn't explain why one of Raw's biggest names is missing on the road to SummerSlam. The Viper will return eventually, but until then, Riddle will have to fend off the Raw Tag Team Champions without his RK Bro best friend by his side. Now, there's few heels in current wrestling better than MJF, whose insistence of never breaking character has cemented him as a top star ever since AEW's debut in 2019. MJF is certainly full of himself and this week claimed that he'd been plagiarized during WWE Smackdown on Fox. On Friday, Seth Rollins said via satellite that he's better than Edge in every way and he knows it, a line very similar to MJF's own catchphrase who says, "I'm better than you and you know it." In a since-deleted tweet, MJF accused Rollins of plagiarizing his line, but the former Universal Champion wasn't able to respond before the tweet was deleted. Rollins will face Edge at SummerSlam on August 21st in a match that'll determine who's the better man, but according to MJF, neither man holds a candle to him. More from AEW as Cody Rhodes lost to Malachi Black on this week's Homecoming Dynamite, and after the one-sided bout, Rhodes seemingly teased his retirement. That attempted retirement was interrupted when Black returned to the ring, hitting Rhodes with a crutch, and the show ended with AEW's commentary team wondering if Cody is done for good. Speaking to Inside the Ropes, Cody discussed his retirement, which he originally had planned for 4 years from now when he's 40, but said that the recent birth of his daughter may have changed things. "I hope I change my mind too, because my daughter will be 4 years old by the time I retire, basically, and I don't know if that's good enough. I need her to 8 years old. I can have a good match, and then she could be good with it. But it all depends on if my back holds up." After making his televised wrestling debut in 2007 at the tender age of 22, Cody has been competing on a major level for nearly a decade and a half, and despite this week's teased retirement, it appears he'll still be competing for many more years to come. And we're ending today with Samoa Joe, who after over a year away from the ring, will compete at NXT TakeOver 36, where he'll face Karrion Kross. Joe's in-ring hiatus was due to a serious concussion he suffered in early 2020, and for much of his time away, he served as a Raw commentator and excelled in the role. Speaking to WWE El Brunch, Joe said he'd love to get back behind the desk at some point, saying, "Commentary is something I very much enjoyed and would be willing to go back to at some point. Right now, some of my other responsibilities at WWE are helping to find the new superstars that will be joining our roster and doing talent scouting around the world. I'm very much looking forward to that and very much looking forward to scouring this planet and finding the next great superstar wherever they may be in the world." Joe may have enjoyed commentary, but right now, his focus is on being a wrestler and a talent scout, and he looks to become the first 3-time NXT champion on August 22nd. Well guys, that's our news for today. Please share your comments below. Also hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon to receive all notifications. And as always, thanks for watching.